The old lighthouse had stood against the sea for nearly 70 years. So had Arthur. Every morning before sunrise, the old keeper climbed the spiral stairs with aching knees, lit the beacon, and smiled at the endless ocean below. But he was never alone. A tiny golden puppy raced up the stairs behind him, his little paws tapping against the worn metal steps. "Slow down, buddy," Arthur laughed. The puppy barked happily, his tail wagging so hard it almost made him tumble backward. They had not always been together. Years earlier, during a violent storm, Arthur found a broken fishing crate drifting near the rocks. Inside was a frightened puppy, soaked to the bone, shivering from the cold. The puppy looked up with frightened eyes, expecting the worst. Arthur gently wrapped the tiny dog inside his coat. "There now," he whispered. "You're safe." The puppy rested his head against Arthur's chest for the first time. Neither of them knew it then, but that single moment would change both of their lives forever. Arthur named him Buddy. From that day on, the little dog followed him everywhere. He learned every corner of the lighthouse. He learned the sound of every wave. Most importantly, he learned the sound of Arthur's footsteps. Whenever Arthur moved, Buddy was right behind him. As the years passed, Buddy grew into a beautiful golden retriever. Strong, gentle, loyal. Every morning he carried Arthur's lunch basket. Every afternoon he waited patiently outside, until Arthur finished checking the lighthouse. Every evening they watched the sunset together from the cliffs. People from the nearby village smiled whenever they saw them. Children ran over to pet Buddy. Fishermen greeted Arthur with a wave. Everyone agreed on one thing. The old keeper and his faithful dog were impossible to imagine apart. One freezing winter afternoon, Arthur climbed onto the outer platform to repair a damaged railing. The wind was stronger than usual. A sudden gust caught him off balance. His foot slipped. He crashed onto the wooden deck. A heavy beam fell across his leg. Arthur cried out in pain. He tried to pull himself free. The beam would not move. The crashing waves swallowed every shout for help. No one in the village could hear him. Buddy barked wildly. He pulled at the wood with all his strength. Nothing happened. Arthur looked at Buddy with tired eyes. "Go." Buddy froze. Leaving Arthur was the last thing he wanted. "Buddy, go get help." Double quotes. The dog whimpered, then finally turned and sprinted down the path. Buddy ran faster than he had ever run before. Rain lashed against his face. Mud splashed beneath his paws. He ignored every obstacle. All he could think about was Arthur trapped alone at the lighthouse. He reached the village and barked at every house. People opened their doors. Confused, the dog barked again. He tugged at their clothes. Still, no one understood what he wanted. Then, a little girl named Emma noticed something unusual. Blood-stained Buddy's golden fur. She knelt beside him. "You're hurt." Buddy barked louder and ran a few steps before looking back. Emma finally understood. "Follow him." Within minutes, several villagers grabbed ropes and tools. Buddy led them through the rain without slowing down. He never looked frightened. He only looked determined. He knew every second mattered. When they reached the lighthouse, Arthur was barely conscious. The villagers lifted the heavy beam. The doctor arrived soon after. Later, he quietly said, if this dog had arrived 10 minutes later, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Arthur survived. Days later, when he returned home, Buddy refused to leave his side. Arthur wrapped his arms around the dog. "You saved my life, my old friend." Buddy simply wagged his tail, happy that Arthur was smiling again. Life returned to normal. Morning walks, sunsets by the sea, quiet evenings beside the fireplace. Neither of them realized these ordinary days would one day become their greatest treasure. The years slipped away. Arthur's hair turned completely white. Buddy's muzzle slowly became gray. The long walks became shorter. The steep lighthouse stairs became harder to climb, but they climbed them. Together, always together. Sometimes, Arthur sat on a bench overlooking the sea. Buddy rested his head on Arthur's lap. The old man gently scratched behind his ears. "I wish dogs lived as long as people," Arthur whispered. Buddy closed his eyes, enjoying the moment. One autumn afternoon, an official letter arrived. The lighthouse would soon become automatic. Arthur's job was ending after more than 40 years. He folded the letter. Slowly, Buddy watched him in silence. Even the dog sensed something had changed. The village organized a farewell ceremony. Old fishermen shook Arthur's hand. Children hugged Buddy. Everyone thanked the man who had kept ships safe for decades. Arthur smiled, though his eyes were full of tears. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, Arthur climbed the lighthouse one final time. Buddy followed close behind. Together, they watched the light shine across the sea. Then Arthur quietly switched it off for the last time. He looked at Buddy and smiled. Well, my friend, I guess we're both retired now. Buddy wagged his tail as if retirement sounded like the greatest adventure in the world. Without lighthouse duties, life became peaceful. Arthur spent his mornings planting flowers. Buddy followed him through the garden, carrying small tools in his mouth whenever Arthur laughed and asked for help. Every evening they sat on the porch together. They watched birds cross the orange sky. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. Some friendships are strongest in silence. Winter arrived earlier than expected. The cold air made Arthur cough more often. At first, he laughed it off. It's just old age, he would say. But Buddy stayed close, watching him with quiet concern. The doctor began visiting every week. Arthur grew weaker. Some days he didn't have the strength to tend the garden. Buddy never left his side. He lay beside the bed, listening to every breath. Each morning, Buddy gently nudged Arthur's hand with his nose. If Arthur smiled, Buddy wagged his tail. If Arthur struggled to sit up, Buddy stayed close, as if trying to lend him strength. One evening, Arthur looked at Buddy for a long time. You've been the best friend I've ever had. If I have to leave someday, I hope you won't be lonely. Double quotes. Buddy rested his head on Arthur's lap. Arthur stroked Buddy's gray fur. You kept your promise. You've looked after me every single day. I only wish I could promise I'd never leave you. A tear rolled quietly down his cheek. The next morning, sunlight filled the small bedroom. Buddy walked to Arthur's bedside as usual. He nudged Arthur's hand. Nothing happened. He nudged him again. Still nothing. The room was strangely silent. Buddy barked softly, then louder. He licked Arthur's face. He placed both paws on the bed. Arthur never opened his eyes. Buddy didn't understand. He only knew something was terribly wrong. Hours later, an ambulance stopped outside the cottage. Neighbors gathered in silence as strangers carried Arthur away. Buddy followed them to the gate. He waited there until the vehicle disappeared beyond the hill. That evening, Buddy stayed at the gate. He refused food. He refused water. Every passing sound made him lift his head. Every car made his tail wag for a second, then fall again. 3 days later, the village held Arthur's funeral. Buddy walked quietly behind the coffin. No leash, no commands. He simply knew where his best friend was going. When everyone left the cemetery, Buddy remained beside the fresh grave. The villagers called his name. He didn't move. The wind blew gently across the hill. Buddy kept staring at the headstone. As night fell, one neighbor carried Buddy home. The next morning, he was gone. They found him back at Arthur's grave before sunrise. It became his daily routine. Every morning, Buddy visited the cemetery. Every afternoon, he returned to the empty cottage. He sat beside the front window for hours. His eyes remained fixed on the road, waiting for footsteps that never came. Spring arrived. Flowers bloomed around Arthur's grave. Buddy lay quietly beneath the warm sun. Visitors often stopped to pet him. He accepted their kindness, but his eyes never left the stone. Summer became autumn. Autumn became winter. Rain soaked his fur. Snow covered the ground. Nothing kept Buddy away. Love had become his routine. Loyalty had become his purpose. A full year passed. Buddy's steps became slower. His face had turned almost completely white. Yet, every sunrise found him walking the same familiar path to the cemetery, as if hope still lived somewhere inside his aging heart. One afternoon, a tourist noticed a lonely dog lying beside the grave. She took a photo and shared Buddy's story online. Within days, millions of people had seen the faithful dog who never stopped waiting for the man who had saved him. People traveled from far away just to meet Buddy. Some brought treats, others left flowers beside Arthur's grave. Many couldn't hold back their tears. Buddy accepted every gentle pat. Then, he quietly turned back toward the headstone. To Buddy, the world had changed, but one thing never had. Arthur had once promised they would always be together. Buddy still believed that promise, so, every day, he waited. Almost 2 years after Arthur's passing, a young boy named Noah visited the cemetery with his mother. He noticed the old dog lying quietly beside the grave. "Why is he here all alone?" he asked. His mother told him the whole story. Noah listened without saying a word. When she finished, the boy slowly walked over and sat beside Buddy. Neither of them spoke. Sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Buddy looked at the little boy. For the first time in months, his tail moved. Just once, a small, gentle wag. Noah smiled. From that day on, he came back every afternoon after school. He never tried to replace Arthur instead. He simply sat beside Buddy. Sometimes they watched the clouds. Sometimes they watched the sea. Sometimes they shared nothing but quiet company. It was enough. As weeks passed, Buddy began walking home with Noah. After visiting the grave, the empty cottage slowly came alive again. Laughter echoed through the rooms that had once been filled only with silence. Noah brushed Buddy's old fur every evening. He prepared fresh food. He spread a warm blanket beside his own bed. Buddy accepted the kindness. But every sunrise, he still walked to Arthur's grave first. That never changed. One crisp autumn morning, Noah arrived at the cemetery, carrying Buddy's favorite biscuit. The old dog was already there, curled up beside Arthur's grave, peacefully asleep, or so it seemed. Noah gently touched Buddy's shoulder. There was no movement. The old dog's face looked calm. His eyes were closed. A soft breeze rustled the flowers around the grave. Buddy had quietly slipped away in the place he loved most. The villagers buried Buddy beside Arthur, not as a pet, but as family. A single stone marked both resting places. Two best friends, together again, never to be separated. Carved beneath their names were simple words. Love doesn't end with goodbye. True loyalty waits until hearts meet again. Everyone who read those words stopped for a moment. Many walked away, wiping tears from their eyes. Even today, visitors still come to the old lighthouse. Parents tell children the story of Arthur and Buddy, not because it is about loss, but because it is about a promise that never faded. A reminder that true love asks for nothing in return, and true loyalty never measures time. Some friends stay with us for a lifetime. The rarest ones stay with us forever. Before you go, if Buddy made you smile, cry, or remember someone you love, please leave a in the comments. Hit like, share this story with your friends, and subscribe to Pawtopia Global for more unforgettable animal stories that will warm your heart, because every loyal heart deserves to be remembered. See you in the next adventure.